when you see the kind of money that he has made from China, from Russia, where the wife of the mayor of Moscow gives him $3.5 million, and nobody even has any question about it. Why did he get $3.5 million? I'll tell you why. Because Joe Biden was in on it. Joe was in on it. There's no way that he wasn't. And uses Joe Biden's plane, Air Force Two, uses Joe, and they go to China, and then he comes back, and he never mentioned it to his father that he just got $1.5 billion, and now it's turning out that it's much more money than that, Rudy. It's turned out to be much more money from China. They have a member of the Chinese Communist Party gave him a lot of money, and the press has no interest in these stories. It's just it's very disheartening for the people of our country. Please.
Mr. President, if he tries to dodge the questions or doesn't address them head on, are you prepared with the facts and information to answer that for the American people?
Well, I have all the information. It just came out. I mean, I didn't know about Moscow, $3.5 million from the mayor's wife. I didn't know about that. And he's a very influential, powerful man in Russia, as you know. And it wasn't me. I didn't have anything to do with Russia. That came out loud and clear. What also came out is they should have never gone into this fake Mueller investigation. And it also came out that the 31 phones that were wiped clean shouldn't have been wiped clean, and that's a criminal act. And Bloomberg, likewise, shouldn't be paying for prisoners to go in Florida and go and vote, because he's basically paying, which is totally illegal, going and paying prisoners. I hope he hasn't done it yet, but he's down in writing as doing it. This is what he wants to do so that he can ingratiate himself to the Democrats.
And now here's the video of Donald Trump from October 22nd of 2022. So this was a few months back at this point, where he said in the next 2 weeks that he would be filing a lawsuit against Pulitzer. Play the clip. This was on one of his deranged campaign rallies for the loser candidates that he endorsed during this midterm election cycle that Americans, by and large, completely rejected. Play this clip of Trump in 2022 talking about the Pulitzer.
You notice nobody talks about it, and yet they gave out the Pulitzer Prize for reporting on the Russia hoax, okay? Reporting on Russia, Russia, Russia. So you have reporters from the Washington Post and New York Times that got Pulitzer Prizes, and they reported the exact wrong thing. So within the next 2 weeks, we're suing the Pulitzer organization to have those prizes taken back. We'll be doing that over the next 2 weeks. I think it's a very good lawsuit, but we'll see. But we're suing. Think of it. They got the Pulitzer Prize for wrong reporting. But other people should have gotten the Pulitzer Prize because, frankly, they got it right for years. And they don't do Pulitzer Prizes for guys like Sean Hannity, but they should, by a different name, and Tucker Carlson, and Jeanine Pirro, and Laura, and so many different people, but they don't get anything. They give Pulitzer Prizes to the people that got it wrong. Remember this, by allowing these people that got Russia, Russia, Russia wrong, they're actually libeling me because they're saying they got it right. And it turned out to be a hoax, and everybody now has admitted it was a hoax. Even the Times and even the Washington Post, they said it's a hoax. So if it's a hoax, then let them give the Pulitzer Prizes back or take them back. They shouldn't be allowed to keep them.
Now, when Donald Trump said that he was suing the Pulitzer in that October speech, I remember that speech. I did a video on it, and a number of the other just despicable and dangerous and deranged things that he said. But as I explained in that video, I said, there is no claim, there is no cause of action, there is no defamatory act. And how is he suing the Pulitzer board? What's the Pulitzer board's role in this? There isn't an underlying defamatory act. The Pulitzer organization wasn't involved in engaging in any defamatory acts at all. Setting that aside, if you go back to the fact that he's alleging that this occurred in 2018, what are we talking about? The statute of limitations in Florida for a defamation action is 2 years. If it's in New York, it's 1 year. He filed this lawsuit, I should have mentioned at the outset, in Okeechobee County, Florida. I have no clue what the basis of filing this in Okeechobee County, Florida. I think he picked a random county to even file this in. It's not in the right court. It's not in the right state. It's not actually asserting any legitimate claims. There's nothing defamatory that took place. It is a bizarre, conspiracy-laden complaint. And I had previously said that lawsuit that Alina Habba filed in Florida back in March of 2022, I thought that's as deranged as you get. The RICO racketeering one, where she's already been sanctioned for $60K or so. She's probably going to be sanctioned several $100,000 more. The federal judge in that case said that she could be reported to the state bar for just the conduct at issue, which the judge essentially said was unethical for even bringing this type of case. This is actually a more outlandish case than that racketeering case, to sue the Pulitzer Prize board. Are you kidding me? And I think I even have to mention this, but I will. I mean, when we talk about the Mueller investigation, while Mueller felt constrained to prosecute a sitting president based on what he believed were the norms that existed within the Department of Justice at the time, which is completely absurd, but it's a whole other story. How about the convictions of Paul Manafort, who Donald Trump pardoned, but Paul Manafort was convicted arising out of the Mueller investigation in Virginia, in Washington, D.C., on 18 counts in Virginia and 7 counts in Washington, D.C. for all of his foreign contacts. How about Rick Gates, another Trump campaign official who pled guilty? How about Mike Flynn, obstruction? Rick Gates also obstruction, pled guilty. Mike Flynn was pardoned by Trump. Countless other indictments and convictions as well by Mueller. I won't belabor the point here, but there was serious entanglements with Russia, period. There absolutely was. Donald Trump's team engaged in obstruction of the Mueller investigation. Mueller thought that there should be a prosecution, except that Trump was a sitting president. Bill Barr, when he got the Mueller report, immediately made the decision not to prosecute and wrote a letter that completely misrepresented what the Mueller report stated. But that said, for them to file a lawsuit on this basis, then to have Fox and the New York Post perpetuate this lawsuit as though it is legitimate, as though it's on equal footing with real important litigation and lawsuit that exists, is really part of a broader disinformation campaign that the right wing is thrusting, is forcing on America generally, and it is just so dangerous. That's why I wanted to break down on this video at each and every step how this disinformation works, how our court system is being used and abused by the right wing in tandem with the media, because ultimately what they then try to sell to their followers is, well, this was a lawsuit. There's a lawsuit that's been filed. A lawsuit wouldn't just be filed for other reasons. And okay, well then, if Democrats file a lawsuit, here's a lawsuit. There are just 2 lawsuits. And then when he loses the case, it barely gets reported on. And then he'll just say, oh, the judge is a rhino, or it's a Democrat judge or a rhino judge. That's what he says, unless it's Judge Eileen Cannon, who you then have to wait 3 months, 4 months for it to get in front of a court of appeals, which eventually will do the right thing and overturn her. This lawsuit isn't going anywhere. He's going to be sanctioned. But in addition to, look, we've talked about this here together on the Midas Touch Network. I feel strongly, lots of other legal analysts were very well experienced, feel strongly, Jack Smith is going to indict Donald Trump in the next 2 or 3 months. People feel very comfortable with that. My own prediction is it's more the 3 to 4 months. Some other people who have more experience than me in federal cases, a lot more, like Preet Bharara, former U.S. attorney, thinks it's going to happen within a month or certainly less than 2 months, he predicts. We'll see. I still think it's more April or May. But at this point, Pulitzer should file a vexatious litigation motion against Trump. There needs to be action here so that Trump can't file these lawsuits anymore. And it's such a rare situation. It's kind of the situation that I mentioned at the outset, where an individual says that aliens from outer space caused an injury, where a vexatious litigation comes into play. I mean, there are cases where vexatious litigations come into play. There are some of those cases where people abuse like important laws that are intended to help people with disabilities, but there'll be these plaintiffs who serve as kind of proxies for a law firm, and they'll bring like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits against small businesses to try to get them to settle if the toilet paper is not in the right height, or if the handle's not specifically within 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters of where it's supposed to be. And even where a business is compliant, you'll have a situation where they'll still sue because it'll cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend against. I'm just saying that's another area sometimes where we see vexatious litigation motions. Other situations where we see vexatious litigation type of motions to literally stop somebody from utilizing the court system. Sometimes prisoners will file so much stuff and handwritten stuff and keep submitting it to courts that there's a process that's dealt with there. But we're talking about really rare circumstances because this is so deranged. I mean, there's no other way to describe this behavior other than it is beneath contempt. It is beneath and beyond anything that's ever existed of an abusive process. There is no comparable to this behavior. And filing this against the Pulitzer is just one of the strangest things ever. So for all of the reasons I said, this case is going nowhere. But what a deranged case to bring, that this is actually real. And Fox, New York Post, owned by Murdoch, they then traffic that lawsuit, push it out to their people as a headline. Trump then uses their story, fundraises off the story, earns back the money that he will be sanctioned, plus additional money, perpetuates a right-wing disinformation chamber. All the other right-wing media outlets start picking it up. They then cover it. Newsmax will cover it. OAN will cover it. Bannon's thing will cover it. They reported like the New York Post said, and then on Fox Digital they said. They act like it's a real thing. They don't talk about the loss. It is a vicious cycle. And the media, that's not the right-wing fascist media, but at this point, lots of the large networks are right-wing fascist leaning anyway. But just say the large networks in general, if you want to give the most favorable interpretation, they're too lazy to cover it, so they just pick up the headline. They run with it. Trump files lawsuit against Pulitzer. They don't call it out the way it needs to be, and they've let this country down. That's why we do what we do here on the Midas Touch Network. We got to reinvent. We got to rethink how to do media. It's got to be independent. It's got to be detailed. It's got to come from the heart. It's got to educate. We got to speak directly to the people. It's not in sound bites. It's the way we're doing this together. So thank you all for watching this. Hit the subscribe button, please. It is important that we